if you have any questions, please feel free. Otherwise, we take this as an opportunity to go to the next speaker. Uh, Naveen, you're available?
Yep, I'm there. I'm there.
Yeah, yeah. Thank
Hi.
you, thank you, thank you, Naveen. Uh, Excellent. Nice to see you again for a long time. And I see a lot of YouTube programs, and then you are socially connected for so many things. So I'm really happy to see you. Okay, I follow some of, maybe you can introduce yourself a little. So prior to that, let me give a quick round of introduction to Naveen Samala. So Naveen, he's talking about ESG in supply chain and operations and infrastructure today. So he's a TEDx speaker, award-winning podcast host, supply chain excellence champion with deep expertise in master black belt, and he's a GE alumnus. He drives global business transformations. Okay, and he has a podcast, Guiding Voice. I really liked it. Okay, so if you could brief your activities, Naveen, I will be very happy to hear
Yeah,
you. Okay, so please
sure,
over to you, Naveen. Yeah, thank you.
sure. Thank you so much, first of all, for giving me this opportunity to talk here in such a wonderful forum. I've been hopping in and hopping off for last 1.5 day, and I'm finding all the sessions so insightful. And kudos to you and the entire team for stitching this together. It is not easy to bring in diverse set of folks from across the globe and covering spectrum of topics across supply chain excellence and all. So let me introduce myself. This is Naveen Samala. Guys, I'm based out of Hyderabad, and I work as a business transformation leader for a connected commerce company. We sell ATM machines and point of sales terminals. And as Abdulji mentioned, I'm a certified master black belt in Lean Six Sigma. So Lean Six Sigma is gaining momentum finally. Okay, so I've been an ardent believer in Lean Six Sigma. That's why I have done the highest level certification in Lean Six Sigma. And in fact, I got the flavor and taste of Six Sigma when I worked with General Electric. And in that company, I was able to do up to black belt level certification internally. And later on, my next company sponsored me for my master black belt certification in Lean Six Sigma from Indian Statistical Institute, Bangalore. So I drive some strategic programs, and I'm part of supply chain excellence organization within my current company. And apart from driving some strategic programs, I'm also responsible for championing the business resiliency and corporate sustainability reporting directive initiatives within my organization. So this is all my day job. Apart from that, I'm also a guest faculty at BITS Pilani. I teach management and technology related topics to MTech students, and I've been doing that for last 10 years because teaching is my biggest passion. And continuing on that, I've started my podcast called The Guiding Voice, which has evolved into a quintilingual podcast, which means it is available in five languages: Hindi, English, Telugu, Kannada, and Marathi. And I am the host on three languages, and rest of the two languages are mentored by my friends. And the goal of my podcast is to ensure that we shape the careers and lives of millions across the globe. So we drive some conversations with renowned guests across the globe in order to make sure that our listeners or our audience get gist of personal transformation related insights or career oriented or leadership oriented topics and all. So my guest range include 9-year-old world's youngest storyteller to 90-year-old US based film director. I've interacted with Olympians, mountaineers, Padma Bhushan recipients, and authors, life coaches, breast cancer survivors, and many more. So it has been 5 years that I started my podcasting journey, and it's been quite enriching from personal perspective. And apart from that, I was able to impact many careers and lives. One example I can tell you is one person from a remote place who was not able to speak English and who was hesitant to talk to me about 3 years ago when he came across the platform and I had a chance to interact with him. And fast forward 3 years, he's pursuing his masters in US. So likewise, our platform has transformed many lives and many careers. So I'll stop boasting about it, and you can feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. Okay, and feel free to tune into the Guiding Voice, okay, which is available on YouTube, Spotify, and wherever you find podcasts. And if you know Telugu, you just search for TGV Telugu. If you know Hindi, just search for TGV Hindi. Okay, that's about me. And before I share my presentation and all, I have a quick question. Okay, and I want this session to be interactive. Okay, so how many of you have changed your mobile device because the screen got damaged, or maybe the repair technician said, in case if you want to get it repaired, it costs about 5,000, whereas if you put another 5,000, you get a brand new mobile phone. Were you in that particular situation? Or maybe uh, TV at your home got damaged, and maybe the repair cost is coming to around 7,000. However, you can get a brand new television in 12,000 or 15,000, or maybe upwards depending on the size of the screen that you want. You can unmute yourself and speak, or you can use chat window. But have you come across this kind of situation before? Okay, I don't see any responses so far.
Sorry, I just in mute. Step, sorry, I
Okay.
just step out.
Okay. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
my question is, have you ever replaced a device like mobile phone wherein screen got damaged, or there is some problem with the any of the components, and the repair technician said it would cost about 5,000 to get the phone repaired, whereas in 10,000 rupees you can buy a new one. Or
Mhm.
same is the case with television, wherein television has undergone some problem and it takes about 7,000 to repair the television, whereas you can get a new one in 15,000 or 20,000 and upwards depending on the size of the screen.
Correct. Uh-huh. Yeah, I recently had this problem. Our kid has thrown the ball to the TV. I think
Hmm.
the TV cost around 30,000 or so.
Okay.
Then the screen broke up. Okay.
Hmm.
So when we called technician, he said, we'll pay 500 rupees for this. So when I want to, so when you want to repair this, it will cost us to like a 20,000 rupees. So we
Right.
said we thrown it, then got new one. Yeah.
You got a
Recently
new one.
happened. Yeah,
Yeah.
recently, very recently.
Unfortunately, that is the era in which we are living, wherein companies are getting greedy in terms of not producing components at a cheaper price. And second thing is reusability and recyclability has come down. Right, I'll tell you
Correct.
one more. I have come across these both scenarios. Okay, wherein once my wife's phone was damaged, and recently one of my neighbors' television got damaged, and they have to get a new one. But personally, I bought a Lenovo laptop. Okay, about 7 years ago, and that was a touchscreen laptop, and I spent about 55,000 at that time, and it worked very well in the first few months. And after that, suddenly the performance has gone down for whatever reason, though I have installed antivirus and all other stuff. And I took to the service center and I asked him, hey, right now the RAM is just 4 GB. Can you expand it to 12 GB or the highest possible thing? And to my surprise, I got to know that the RAM slot is sealed. So which means you cannot expand the RAM, which means you have to live with that device, or you go and upgrade, right? So this also kind of bothered me, because it is not about us spending money from the pocket, but think about various components that go into making that particular laptop, right? If I'm discarding it, right, how much of environmental damage it is going to cause, right? So likewise, there are so many situations that we come across in our day-to-day life, wherein we are happy replacing products but not caring about the environment. In one of the sessions yesterday, a speaker mentioned, right, leave the planet, okay, in a way, in a state where our parents and our grandparents and have given it to us, right? But unfortunately, the kind of damage our generation and our previous generation and the next generation are creating, right, it is completely devastating. And I'll tell you one more thing. Recently I interviewed a guest and I asked him, hey, what do you think about aliens? He made a profound statement saying that, Naveen, when I think about aliens, I always have a feeling that aliens must be laughing looking at people on Earth, the kind of damage that we are all doing to our Mother Earth. We have only one planet, right? And we don't have a planet B. That's why one of the apparel brands says there is no planet B, and even IBM has also come up with similar slogan and all. But why am I talking about all these things? Because these are all very, very important topics related to environment, social, and governance, and they are going to play critical role when you are part of a supply chain organization. And it is the company's responsibility to make sure that companies are protecting the environment and leave the world in the way it was handed over to us, right? And I've been to Europe in the beginning of this year, and I was truly amazed with the kind of infrastructure that Europeans are building. Okay, first and foremost thing is they are focusing mostly on the renewable energy sources, like be it solar power and be it windmills installation in the remotest part, not even the big cities or the large cities as such, right? And in fact, to be honest, country like India, which is tropical, where we have abundant sunlight, how many solar panels are we looking at, and how many solar power plants are we really having in a country as big as India, right? And second thing is, we tend to once you buy the car, we tend to discard our two wheelers and forget about cycling, forget about walking, right? We tend to go by four wheeler. But if you look at European countries, right, they are encouraging citizens to take the bicycles, and all the cities are being built to be bicycle friendly and all. So those are certain
Correct.
observations as a normal citizen, but we got to be little responsible.
Correct.
And yeah, my intent of bringing all these things, right? 1 hour that I'm going to spend along with the 20 people in the room, right? So it is a cumulative effort of 21 hours. That is how I measure our efforts, and as long as we
There
are
are
able to
other
change,
channels also
you know,
open, Naveen. There are many in
yeah,
YouTube and there are many on LinkedIn. Yeah.
right. So in that case, probably that might go to up to 100 hours of investment, right?
Yeah.
What will be the return on investment after spending this 100 plus hours? Even if one person can change and bring that particular positive impact to the world, right? That will make my day. Okay. On that note, I'll bring the formal presentation. And if you guys are okay with my pace, or if you want me to reduce my tone or pace, do let me know.
Perfect. It's
And I would,
perfect.
yeah,
Yeah.
I would
Perfect.
strongly recommend you guys to interact, because that is how, yeah, I'll also get to know whether you are all able to cover, you understand what I'm covering, or else it will become monotonous. Okay, so please try to speak if possible. And on that note, let me bring up the presentation, guys. I'll start sharing my screen. And all right, so I'll go to the presentation. So I'm
Yeah, it's
sure
visible.
some of the elements of the, yeah, yeah, Abdulji, I think you are able to see my screen,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
The
I can
present.
see.
Okay,
Yeah.
excellent. So the role of ESG. So first few slides are going to be a refresher for most of you who might already be familiar with EHS. Okay, which is environment, health, safety teams that we have in our corporate organizations and all, right? So today I'm going to, first part of my presentation will be more on the basics of ESG, following which I will talk about the regulatory requirements globally in terms of what various legislations are recommending companies to do, right? So we'll begin with ESG definition and why ESG matters in supply chain, and then dive deep into each of these three elements: the environment, social, governance, and then we'll proceed with the benefits of integrating ESG in supply chain. Because supply chain organization has got a lot of precedence these days. One speaker said, right, from shop floor to top floor, like we got promoted from shop floor to top floor. So that is a very powerful statement, and I completely echo with that. So it is very, very important for us being supply chain professionals, understand the intricacies of ESG, because ESG is going to shape the future of the world, not just the country where we are belonging to, not just the company that we are working for, but the entire world, the entire planet. So we'll also understand the challenges and risks, and then talk about strategies for integrating these ESG initiatives. And I've heard a few speakers talk about the metrics and reporting. Of course, I do a little bit of data analytics as part of my job, and in fact, I have some fair idea of CSRD requirements in terms of what kind of KPIs and metrics are expected by the organizations that have presence in the European Union. I'll try to share as much as I can. And not la, la, and last but not the least, I would also like to talk about few companies who are doing really well in terms of contributing to the environment positively. Have you heard about Infosys Bengaluru campus or Mysuru campus and all? So Infosys is one of the large
Largest,
multinational, yeah,
largest,
corporations.
largest. There's so
Yeah,
many
net
people. I don't know the number, but it's the largest campus.
Yeah, it is the largest campus, and one thing that not many people are aware of is it is carbon negative company. Like
Wow.
they have almost zero electricity consumed, which is going to emit scope one emissions or something, and they have built their campus in such a way that everything is recyclable, and they are relying on renewable energy sources. In fact, so there is a lot to learn from companies like that. And I'll also talk about the future of ESG in the supply chain. And towards the end, I will focus more on the global regulatory regulations. One thing with regard to global regulatory regulations, right? People here in the room might have heard about the GDPR, Global Data Protection Regulation, right? Similar to GDPR, European Union has come up with something called as CSRD, which is Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive. But do you think CSRD is the new one? No, it is not a new requirement. It is an enhanced version of NFRD. Likewise, every country is trying to put in some stringent rules so that the corporations will become more responsible in terms of saving the environment and all. If you talk about US, you have Security and Exchange Commission. SEC has come up with certain regulations. Similarly, California Act. And fortunately or unfortunately, I did not come across any specific act drafted by Indian government as such. But
Yes,
that should not send us a message that we are overlooking. That might be in the making, or maybe my ignorance. But Abdulji, if you are aware of anything, do let me know.
it is coming up. It's I think it's in the pipeline. They're working on it.
Yeah. So the thing is, when GDPR came, right, people thought of it, okay, oh my God, it is going to have a lot of burden on the IT employees and all. But if you understand the root cause and the reason why Europe has come up with that particular initiative, right, they protect the interest of their citizens. They protect the interest of the data which is being generated belonging to their country that should stay within them, right? So they are always pioneers in terms of creating that regulatory legislations, and not just creating but implementing them. So CSRD has a bright future, and for those of you who want to have long-term career aspirations within supply chain domain or within ESG space, I think CSRD, mastering the CSRD requirements and coming up with some solutions would be a great opportunity. Okay. So any questions so far?
No, fine, fine.
All right. So we'll move ahead. I'm not going to talk more about this ESG because everybody knows what it stands for: environment, society, and governance. So why do you think there is a lot of emphasis on ESG? Why do you think California Act has come or CSRD Act has come? There is a rationale, right? Because if you look at the investor landscape and the venture capitalists nowadays, right, they're thinking long term. Like if at all you are running a startup in the sustainability space, or if it is environment friendly, then you will have maximum chances for getting the funding, right? So which means there is a growing demand within or amongst the investor community saying that okay, we wanted to encourage the companies which are contributing to the environment positively, and that also is coming from the regulatory pressures like CSRD, California Act, and the upcoming Indian environment related acts and all. And last but not the least, even consumers, right, have become aware about okay, what is the damage that is being caused, okay, by each one of us. Most of the times, right, if you happen to go to shopping mall, right, I tend to make sure that I'm carrying some shopping bags along with me, okay, not
Correct.
just because I have to spend 10 rupees for a bag which is sold by them, but to be conscious about the environment. Likewise, I've seen some people doing that, but if more and more people do that, it would be amazing. And I'll tell you guys, when I went to Slovakia in the month of February, I was amazed at a shopping mall, okay, wherein people came to the shopping mall, and they were trying to parcel, okay, they pack some food home and all there to go, and they brought their own tiffin boxes. But in India, if you happen to visit a meat store or anywhere, right, are we really carrying tiffin boxes? I have seen at least my parents carrying tiffin boxes during my childhood, right? We think, okay, it is a shame to carry something and all, but we overlook on the negative impact that these plastic bags are going to cause, right? But I wish more and more consumers get aware and start focusing on that. Then ultimately change can be driven. And most last but not the least, there is a lot of expectation on the transparency part. And CSRD, California Act, these are going to bring that particular transparency in terms of how a particular product is produced, right? If it is food, right, we call it as farm to plate. So what are all different steps that are involved in terms of getting the food onto a plate? Similarly, a product, right from the concept to the manufacturing, sourcing the raw materials and all. So who are all involved? Are they really environmentally friendly or not? So those are the things which these regulatory standards are going to focus on. And so why ESG matters in supply chain? Because supply chain is one of the key functions within the manufacturing part. Because supply chain is not just limited to internal supply chain, which means it is external as well. Sometimes we have to procure raw materials. Beyond raw materials, we have to procure certain parts or components which go into making of a telephone or a mobile phone or a laptop. Do you think if Apple is selling this MacBook, okay, do you think entire components are made by Apple? Not really. There are certain parts which are provided or sourced by the vendors. Now the focus is like whether those vendors are practicing the sustainability manufacturing practices or not, right? So ESG matters very much because all the supply chains are inherently global, which means, for example, to build a Mac device kind of thing, do you think only vendors are sourced from a single country? Not really. They are spread across the globe. Some might come from Asia, some might come from Europe, because if, not every country will have the specialization to produce certain things, right? So, likewise. And ESG issues within supply chain can have significant reputational, financial, and operational impacts on the focal company. So, for those of you who are aware of these PCI guidelines, payment card industry guidelines, right? Earlier, okay, before these PCI guidelines were provided or were formulated, you know, companies had left, right, center access to credit cards, and that credit card data was misused by some employees who had access to them. Then what PCI standard has come up into the market, and it has forced the employees not to, forced the companies not to retain any of the credit card or financially sensitive information, and that got deleted. And today, if at all companies storing your CVV number, it has to come with your consent. And apart from that, there is a OTP, second level authentication, that is taking place. Likewise, change is being put in place. It takes time. Similarly, I'm expecting similar kind of reforms happening in the ESG space as well, given that the damage that all the companies and all we as consumers are causing to the mother earth. So when it comes to the risk part, right? So there is climate change. Like it's been raining for last 3 days in Hyderabad, and we cannot really predict the weather, right? Last time, if we look at the climatic conditions in Hyderabad, we hardly had any rainfall, and this year summer was kind of staggered. To be honest, this year summer was really good, but before last year, the temperature has gone up to 48 degrees Celsius, being in Hyderabad and surrounding areas and all. So, which means all the glaciers are melting. Why? Because of greenhouse gas emissions, because of pollution, because of all the climatic change. This is the important risk which needs to be addressed. Next is the social risk, labor abuses, human right violations, unsafe working conditions, or even child labor being employed. Those are all certain things. And human trafficking, right? In case if you are not socially responsible and not believing in diverse talent, so maybe not employing people from other communities who do not identify themselves as male and female. And these days we are hearing a lot about neurodiversity, right? So which means equal justice to everybody. Make sure that all humans are treated equally. Just that somebody is visually impaired, it doesn't mean that they are not eligible to work anywhere. They can work, provided you identify their talent and give the work related to their talent. And last but not the least, the governance risk, corruption, bribery, lack of transparency. These are all burning issues, especially in a country like India. Okay, the corruption and bribery are at the top, right? Especially when you are dealing with governmental organizations and all, it is not that easy. Even for a private organization to be set up, right? In terms of getting all the registration and paperwork done, at least one or two departments will be there who will be putting their table under, putting their hand under the table, right? But overall, this ESG is going to play a critical role, and it gives us an opportunity for value creation. In case if you are environmentally friendly, right, you'll say that the brand reputation of the company increases. You might have seen advertisements from Coca-Cola company. They say that okay, we recycle more than 90% of the water we consume, and we generate about 2 times of the water that we consume and all. How are they doing that, and why are they doing that? Because they want it to be environmentally friendly, and that will also be a kind of USP for them, right? And apart from that, operational efficiency can be achieved. For example, if you are focusing on the environment, okay, and let's assume you are sourcing a product from China, and I found a similar product within India, hypothetically. Okay, if you are environmentally conscious, you might try to source the product directly from India rather than getting it from China. Because if it is coming from China, you have to pay for the, I mean, it has to be routed, it has to be shipped through air or water or any other transport means, again, which is leading to carbon emissions. Whereas here also, if it is local, still carbon emissions are there, but not to the scale wherein you are sourcing it from other countries, right? So that is why if you are focusing on ESG, it will improve your operational efficiency, and you'll also be able to enter new markets, and you'll attract right talent, because all the Gen Zs and Centennials, right, these guys are focusing on environment because they have been taught about environment as part of the school curriculum. Most of them are studying about environment and the impact, and these guys are sensitive, right? So which is good thing. So it is very, very important for us to focus on ESG. And with regard to the environment, we have discussed many. One thing which I want to highlight is circular economy. Going back to my laptop example, if my laptop had an extensible RAM, I would have not upgraded to MacBook. In simple terms, I would have saved money, I would have saved some carbon footprint also, right? So recycling, reuse, remanufacturing, this is very, very important, and it is going to take the front seat in the coming years. Product life cycle management, unfortunately we are in the era wherein we are replacing everything, right? And good thing is some e-commerce companies are trying to recycle the products by accepting the returns of the material, return of the old phones or something. But we should understand, are they really refurbishing and selling them, or are they scrapping it, right? That needs to be paid attention to. And another important aspect is preventing the pollution, reducing the air, water, soil pollution from manufacturing and transportation. This is also another important aspect. Any questions? All right.
Perfect.
I'll
Perfect.
take,
Yes.
yeah, I'll take that silence as no, and thanks, Abdulji,
Yeah.
for the acknowledgement.
Mhm.
Now, you might have heard about scope 1, 2, 3. I want to spend a minute or two to explain you what
Mhm.
is this. Yeah, I can hear you. So, scope 1, 2, 3 emissions, right? Okay, how many of you have seen a auto rickshaw in front of you, which is emitting lot of
The
fume
black
and all
smoke, huh?
particular smoke, right?
It's almost always that is
It's
an
it's
issue for
almost always.
everybody.
Why are they doing? They're greedy. They want to save money, right? They wanted to mix some kerosene or something else, and they run that old vehicle, okay, which though it has reached the end of life, still they wanted to use it, right? But in the developed countries, there is a strong regulatory, okay, compliance in place, which will ensure that if the vehicle reaches its end of life, it has to be scrapped or recycled and all. But going back to the scope 1 emissions, right? For example, we are using refrigerators and air conditioners. Okay, they do not come for free. Of course, I'm not referring to nobody is giving us for free, but the amount of electricity that they consume, first thing. Second thing is the amount of hydrofluorocarbons that they are going to emit. Right, it is going to damage the ozone layer. And I've been to US couple of times, and the sky in the US is completely different from sky in India, sky in Europe. The sky in US, right? It exposes the UV rays directly because those guys have consumed so much of electricity and they have too much of what you call refrigeration and air conditioning, HVAC systems in place and all. But in case if you do not correct that, right, it is going to damage or deplete the ozone layer further. So anything that is got to do with refrigerant fugitive emissions, right? Those are the direct scope 1 emissions. Next one is scope 2 emissions, purchase electricity for own use, which means, see, to produce electricity, right, there are two modes that primarily we depend on. One is water and the other one is by burning coal, right? Okay, water is okay, but when it comes to burning coal, don't you think it is emitting some gases and it is impacting the environment? So what scope 2 emissions talk about is, if you are purchasing electricity, why don't you purchase electricity from the renewable sources? Means these days I've seen certain people, okay, who are installing solar panels on their rooftop and trying to produce the electricity which they wanted to consume. Right? More of those things should happen. So as part of scope 2, we'll see, okay, what is the source of the electricity that you are using? Focus on renewable electricity. And scope 3 emissions talk about production of purchased raw materials. One simplest thing I will tell you guys: how many of you take metro or public transport to commute to office? And how many of you go to office alone in a car? Right? So even that employee commuting, right, it is also going to emit the pollution. Of course, public transport also does emit the pollution with regard to buses and all, but metro is something which is kind of environmentally friendly in one way. And second thing is, imagine if you are traveling alone by car by yourself versus if you are taking 4 or 5 friends along with you, right? You can reduce the number of vehicles that are plying on the road, right? So that is one aspect of scope 3 emission. And apart from that, newspaper ink, water, and then office equipment, and then paper mill, right? IT services, catering, what waste disposal, all these kind of things will fall under your scope 3 emissions. So we got to focus on all these three. And if your company is producing any products and all, make sure that you reduce these scope 1, 2, 3 emissions as much as possible. Specifically, if you are using electricity, if possible, try to get the electricity from the renewable energy sources. Or if you have a large campus within your organization, set up the solar panels and produce the electricity by yourself. Right? Moving ahead. So relevance, I told about it: diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? Which means promoting diverse suppliers, inclusive hiring practices within the supply chain. When I say inclusive hiring practices, when I talk about diversity, people think only it is about having 35% or 33% women reservation. Guys, we have gone beyond that. It's not just about having women in the workforce. It is about having people, okay, of different caste, religion, race, different physical abilities, different mental abilities. Give them an opportunity. And I'm fortunate to have interviewed a lady named Meera Shenai, who runs Youth for Jobs organization. And her organization focuses on empowering people with disabilities so that they become employable. And nowadays there is a mandate by by the government to hire at least 2% or 3% of people from disabled communities, right? So it is also very, very important. Do not overlook somebody. That's why these days we are seeing certain posts, right? It says people with neurodiverse, or people who are visually impaired, or people with hearing impaired, right? They are being employed in certain organizations. If you go to a shopping mall like Lifestyle or any other shopping mall, you find a salesperson. If he's a deaf and mute, right, there is a badge out here: this person cannot speak, but that person is good at folding clothes, or good at understanding, good at billing, or something of that sort. We need to identify the talent and link them to appropriate job which they can excel. And Mira Shanai ji has mentioned some great things. So whoever, even autism patients, like recently you might have watched this movie Sitare Zamin Par, right? So one of the characters, that person who works in the hotel as a cleaner, right? That guy is good at repetitive work. Whereas if you are a normal human being, Okay, like me, I hate to do repetitive job. That's why I do so many things. I hate to do a single thing again and again, right? Whereas people with autism or people with some special abilities, right, they don't get bored. They find joy in repetitive tasks and all. So it is good to have them on board. Health and safety, ensuring safe environment for all workers, which means companies should not take lightly when there are some hazardous situations in the organization, and companies should keep a track of, okay, how many accidents have been reported in a particular workplace and what are they doing to prevent them, right? It is not just limited to factory floor. It extends to logistics. It extends to every place, even their customer experience center where customers walk in, right? And product safety and quality, which means the product should be safe and meet the quality standards throughout the supply chain, not just at the manufacturing level. So that's why it is very, very important to focus on the social part as well. And next is the third pillar is your governance. Is having the internal controls and practices. Again, so when it comes to governance, people think, okay, I'll put up a PowerPoint presentation, or I'll print a flexi board with all the regulatory requirements and the rules that the employees have to follow. Remember one thing, guys. It is not enough just to practice by letter, but it is important to practice both by spirit and letter. I'll tell you one simple example. When helmet rule was imposed in India, right? I think it happened about 10, 15 years ago, if I remember correctly. Government enforced all the uh, automotive dealers, saying that, hey, if you're selling a bike or something, you need to either give that helmet for free, or make sure that helmet is purchased by the customer. What I've seen most of the times in those days is, even police officers also, the cops, the traffic cops also, they did not stop people as long as they are carrying the helmet, not wearing the helmet. Okay. So the thing is, if you want to go by just by letter, right, you are carrying the helmet, not wearing the helmet. But if you follow the spirit, you will wear the helmet no matter whether there is cop or not, because it is for your safety, your family's safety, and all. That's why whenever we are talking about governance, it has to be followed by spirit and letter. And in the supply chains part, right, make sure that you are not trying to do any favors to somebody, okay, from your family member, since they are manufacturing so and so, let them be the onboard, let us onboard them as vendors, and all that is also treated as a bribery or conflicts of interest. And we need to make sure that the supplier compliance is assessed, and along with all the ESG standards that are put in place. And data privacy and cyber security, I've seen some beautiful presentations today, right? How cyber security teams are at the forefront in terms of protecting the sensitive supply chain data, right? And stakeholder engagement. Make sure that there is regular communication with suppliers. So one thing what I have seen, right? Some of the companies, not most companies, they treat suppliers as suppliers and customers as customers. They don't think that there is a human behind supplier. They don't think that there is human behind customer, and they don't think that employee is also human, right? Understand the human element, establish that particular connection. One of the major aspects, okay, why you need to have that particular relations with people across the spectrum of suppliers, customers, and across the value chain system is, in case if government is mandating for you to come up with certain metrics reporting as part of your annual reporting and all, who is going to provide you the data? Suppliers. Means if it is supplier related data, they are going to provide the data. And if you are not treating them with humanly respect, and if you don't display that particular empathy, you will not be able to communicate with them effectively. So stakeholder engagement is very, very important. And especially when it comes to implementing these regulatory compliances and all, don't wait till the last minute. The moment you come across a law, engage your supplier saying that, hey guys, please make a note. This particular act is coming, which means we might demand more data from you. You are expected to provide these details. Be ready. Then only you will be successful. Because do you think suppliers are directly providing the parts or components to you? You never know. They might be relying on some other person, and that person might be relating on some other company. That is a chain reaction which might happen, right? But if you want timely reporting of data and all, it is essential for you to establish that particular rapport and make sure that you are engaging the stakeholders in a right way. Next is supplier code of conduct. Clear expectations. Okay, for example, our company, we do every year we conduct something called as supplier day. All the suppliers are brought to our customer experience center, about 300 suppliers or 200 suppliers across the globe, and there is a representative from each of the supplier, and we tell them about our company strategy, and we tell them about any data requirements, or if they are having any challenges, all those things. That way that particular connect is being established, and at the same time expectation setting is also happening. For example, in the recent supplier day, we spoke about CSRD requirements. When suppliers said yes, we'll do the groundwork, we will let you know what all data we have already in place, what all data we do not have, if so, what do you want. Then what we did is we took the help of a consulting company, and that consulting company was onboarded, and they came up with all the detailed requirements related to CSRD, for example. So CSRD assessment was done initially to see where we are versus what the expectation is. The gap assessment was done, and we found that okay, certain data is not yet reported in the organization, and that data has dependency with these suppliers. Immediately communicate with them rather than, for example, your CSRD reporting is due next month. If you wait till last week, you're not going to achieve success. You have to start on day one itself. Then only you'll be able to at least get some metrics. I'm telling you, you'll not be able to get 100% of the data because I'm going through that particular path already, right? So it is very, very important. The governance part is also very, very important in the supply chain world. So benefits, again, I told about brand reputation, reduced operational costs, risk management, because nowadays certain organizations have ventured into uh, assessment of suppliers. So which means similar to how Gartner performs the hype cycle in terms of reviewing the technology, whether the technology is going to sustain for next 5 years or whether it will be a laggard or so on and so forth. Certain companies are assessing various manufacturers to see if they are following ethical practices and what is their vision, and they are giving a risk assessment score. For example, okay, I want some resources from uh, related to database developers, hypothetically. What I'll do is, instead of I approaching to the vendors directly, I will log into this tool to see okay, who are all the vendors in that particular database management resourcing, out of which each company, means each consulting firm, will have a rating, and basis which okay, these are all good, following ethical practices and all, let me shortlist these three, and I'll send the RFP only to them, right? This is the future. And innovation and new opportunities, like, drives the product and process innovation. And last but not the least, you can be proactively engage and approach and formulate steps that are required in order to be adherent to ESG laws. So these are all the benefits of integrating ESG in the supply chain. Challenges, again, as I said earlier, transparency and data, and most importantly, large corporations, they have data scattered across different systems, and they have some legacy systems, and the data is imperfect. In a way, data has anomalies, data is incomplete, and data is uh, inaccurate as well, right? And especially companies which have undergone acquisitions and mergers, their story is further bad, further worse, because okay, as and when a company undergoes acquisition or something, right, consolidation of systems should take place, consolidation of data should take place. But unfortunately, that is not taken as a priority. People focus on the status quo in terms of running the businesses and all, and they continue using the two old systems like that only. And if you look at the data dictionary and the layout of various fields and all, there is a real mismatch, and it will get difficult when you wanted to report the metrics. So this is another challenge. And sometimes suppliers may not be convinced, saying that, hey, my job is to sell the products. Why should I give you data? How does it matter whether I have produced using sustainable practices or not? Because it is not pinching them. It is not your headache. Unless they also fall under the ambit of CSRD or any other regulations, they will never ever care for you. That is the biggest challenge which we need to be careful and wary about. And then cost of implementation, it is not easy to implement this. You might have to invest in technologies, you must have to invest in training, you might have to invest in audit. And the next important thing is greenwashing concern. You might have heard about what do you call there is an analogy, right? If at all government is trying to act on fixing particular thing, right? If it is done for the namesake versus if it is done with the true spirit and letter. Similarly, certain organizations are trying to pretend as if they are ESG compliant and all by doing this greenwashing efforts and all. That is not going to help. If at all companies trying to tamper the metrics and all, it is going to fire back. So that's why it is very, very important to ensure genuine commitment is there. If you're putting in superficial effort, right, it is not going to lead you anywhere and it will have negative repercussions. And people also have difficulty in terms of measuring the impact. What are the tangible benefits of ESG initiatives? And resistance to change. Yeah, whenever there is change, right? People love change, but they don't want to be part of it. And there might be resistance. And resistance might be due to different things. Okay, different things in the sense there is a resistance called I won't and I can't. If it is I can't, it can be fixed because they lack that particular knowledge. I can train them and I can get. But I won't is a behavioral stuff, which means I'm limited to this. I don't want to change. That is the attitude which may or may not be changed. So you need to be equipped to deal with the change resistors. So these are the challenges and risks. And moving forward, how do you implement this ESG? Okay, how do you integrate this, right? First and foremost, you need to have a clear goal and policy. And again, that goal and policy, Abdulji, are you trying to speak? Okay. So we need to make sure that the companies align with overall business strategy, and when the suppliers are onboarded, they need to understand the ESG criteria during the supplier selection itself. Let's assume, okay, when it comes to information technology, right? We know these ISO standards and all. If a particular company is ISO certified, then it is easy for you to onboard because they know how to erase the data, how to dispose the data and all. Similarly, in the ESG space also, if somebody is already using renewable energy sources and they are disposing the waste materials properly and they're not causing any damage to the mother earth and all, even if they are costing $1 or $2 extra, that's fine, you onboard them so that you will be future proof, right? And map your supply chain, understand various tiers and identify high risk areas, implement robust due diligence, which is nothing but regular audits, monitoring, and leverage technology, like I think we mentioned about Tableau, Power BI. Okay, connect your reporting tools with the data warehouses and data lakes, whatever you have, and try to establish the KPIs and dashboards, right? And make sure that all the process is automated and no tampering is being done. And when it comes to tampering, right, probably if possible, try to leverage the technologies like blockchain, which is tamper proof, and foster a culture of sustainability. So when I say, see, sustainability, as I've been telling, right, it should be implemented by spirit and letter. Don't do it for the namesake, right? So make sure people understand the why behind it. If they understand the why behind it, then it will be easy for the companies to get the support of the stakeholders. And last but not the least, set the measurable KPIs. Okay, both focus on both the leading indicators, lagging indicators, which are going to talk about the impact, and make sure that these metrics are communicated to the employees from time to time so that they also see the visible progress, right? And give some incentives to people who are coming up with initiatives related to ESG. So these are some strategies with regard to that. And technologies like I spoke about blockchain and then Internet of Things, real-time data on energy consumption. Like can integrate sensors to see if a big machine is running in the factory or on the factory floor or the shop floor, right? Be wary of how much energy it is consuming and how much time it is idle. Can it be shut down? Okay, for some time in between, so on and so forth. Likewise, so my thought here, right, in case if you want to come up with some improvement ideas and all, from my process improvement expert, from my master black belt hat, what I tell is empower your employees. Tell them your vision is to cut down so and so emissions or something. Then employees will come up with wonderful ideas. And once the ideas come, right, don't belittle them. Even if it is a bad idea, listen to them and don't shed those ideas. Because if you give a lending year, and if you tell them, okay, yes, we have done this thing so far in a not so positive way, and similar ideas have been implemented, but last time situation was different, then employees will start questioning the status quo, because the processes that are designed today dates long back, and the situations, circumstances, people responsible, everything was different from what we are today. So always question the status quo. Can it be done differently or not? And for that to happen, management should be very open and transparent. In companies where I worked for, right, I have been very successful in terms of implementing the idea box and all. Because the way I have driven those idea boxes is, it is not a namesake. If I've received 40 ideas, I've reviewed them one by one, and if I felt some idea is not so good, I still had a conversation with that employee and told that employee why we are not going with this one. And if I liked a particular idea, then I have onboarded that employee and asked them, hey, what can be done? And provided the resources. Likewise, every month we used to publish the dashboard. This month, X number of ideas have come, out of which some point X% of them were scrapped, and some 50% of them are in progress, and two are complete, or whatever it is. That will encourage employees. Supply chain mapping tools. See, this is again goes back to uh, process mapping, coming up with value stream mapping. That goes a long way, because once you start documenting the whole process, you'll understand the inefficiencies that are existing today. Because as I told earlier, the processes that we are using may not have been devised in the recent past. They might have been carried as a legacy. And the requirements at that point in time when these processes were designed are completely different from where we are today. Right? Sensor technology is another thing which can be also be leveraged, like you have monitoring and environmental conditions for product integrity. So with that, let's go to the frameworks part. Okay, and before I talk about framework, I want to acknowledge few companies like Patagonia, okay, who are focusing on ethical sourcing, fair labor, circular economy. What do you mean by circular economy? Anyone has any idea of what is circular economy? Have you heard
So now
about it
we
before?
hear that the circular economy, especially example, like when you do
Yeah,
mobile, then you use the reuse the whole process instead of spending. So there is one example of circular supply chain. Instead of this one company in Europe, so they are not producing and selling it. They are giving the mobile phones on rental. So you use it
yeah,
and then give it back. So they recycle it and
yeah,
then they do that. So
yeah,
so this way the wastage, residual wastage, it gets minimized, and then
yeah,
the resource availability for everybody, it's maximizes.
yeah, yeah. Great one. So on that note, I would like to extend the mobile phone use case.
I would like to
Earlier,
I
yeah,
would like
please
to
go.
say this,
Yeah,
this
yeah,
is
Hasim, go.
same thing which we used to have.
Sorry. Yeah,
Please go ahead,
one,
Hashim.
yeah, one participant got unmute.
Got dropped. Okay.
You can continue.
So, okay, I'd like to take the case of Apple, right? Apple, I'm an Apple fan, and at the same time, I'm an Apple critic also, because these are the guys who implemented this non-removable battery and non-expandable memory and all. Of course, what they say is Apple devices are something completely decomposable, right? In 5, 10 years, once you put it under, once you put it under the earth, in the sense if you bury it, right? But slowly this practice has been adapted by other organizations, other mobile vendors also. Because if you remember the basic phone model like Nokia and all, we used to have removable battery, and if there is a problem with the battery, somebody can go buy and get a new one. And also some of the mobile phone vendors, they give you expandable storage capacity and all. But if you are going with the sealed stuff, right, it is again forcing somebody to really buy a new one, which means it is a non-circular thing, right? So try to implement circular economy, means try to put this into practice, wherein I always wonder, like, if my smartphone, my smart TV is, I have a 65-inch smart TV today. and it has a processor, right? It has a inbuilt storage and all. Can that not be expandable so that I don't have to buy a new television after 2 years or 3 years, right? Similarly, mobile phones, can we not have the expandable memory slots? Can we have removable processor, storage slot, and so on? We have to think in those directions, right? One thing, what Tesla, one of the reasons why Tesla is so successful as a company, right? The software upgrade, right? Irrespective of the version of car that you buy, you can always be on the latest one. You don't have to fear saying that I'm getting obsolete and I need to buy a new one, right? Next is Unilever, like sustainable living plan, responsible sourcing of palm oil, water stewardship. These are some initiatives that they have come up with. And Maersk, decarbonization efforts in shipping. Sustainable fuel, right? I think I don't remember the country name exactly, but they came up with with a with a vehicle that runs completely on hydrogen, okay, which is going to emit oxygen and water as the output instead of carbon monoxide. So research has to be done in those spaces wherein alternate fuels can be done, implemented. Apple, supply responsibility, clean energy programs in manufacturing. Right? So likewise, there are numerous examples. These are some companies which stand out from crowd. That's why I've listed them here. But if you guys have any other examples related to uh, companies which are doing very well from the ESG perspective, you can share them as well. Okay. So future of ESG, right? Increased regulation, more and more stringent reporting requirements will come, and digital transformation, right? Which means the dependency or reliance on technology, okay, will increase further to be able to promote transparency and efficiency, and moving beyond linear take, make, dispose. No, take, make, reuse. That will be the new mantra. And deeper collaborations across tiers of the supply chain and also with competitors. Greater focus on worker well-being and community impact. So if somebody gets injured at work, right, it is not just enough to give them unpaid paid leave and take care of hospital expenses. It is impossible. It is important for the company to make sure that those kind of incidents won't repeat in future, right? Make sure the environment is conducive to the employees to function well and perform better, right? And ESG risk becoming fully integrated into enterprise risk management, value chain transformation, because ESG is becoming a core driver of business strategy. As I said, it is no longer a tick box exercise. It has taken the prime or the center stage. Okay, so Abdulji, I know we are running out of time. We just left with 4 minutes. Is it okay if I extend
Yeah,
by 10 more minutes?
yeah. Please go ahead. Yeah,
Okay, because I want to cover the regulatory
yeah. Please,
requirement.
please.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So corporate sustainability reporting, similar to GDPR for data, this is GDPR for ESG in the European Union in simple terms. So initially they wanted to come up with the phased implementation starting 2024. However, the timelines have staggered. Now, the reporting year is 2027, which means companies have to start doing their groundwork starting next year. And who all falling under the scope of this one? Okay, there are around 50,000 plus companies across European Union and non-European companies, okay, which have significant European Union presence. Means they have mandatory sustainable reporting, okay, within the third party assurance. That is the whole essence of this corporate sustainability reporting. So what are they focusing on, right? They're focusing on emissions reporting. I told you about scope 1, 2, 3. And apart from that, the focus is on double materiality assessment. What do you mean by double materiality assessment? It is focusing on impact and finance. Impact is nothing but company's effort on people and planet, which means if I am producing a product, is it causing any damage to the mother earth, or is it causing damage to the consumers, or is it causing damage to the employees? So this is an inside out. And the other one is financial materiality, which means government has drafted a new regulation, and by implementing that, am I going to spend additional money? So sustainability issues which are affecting company performance. This is the outside in. So these are the two focus areas within the CSRD. So it is very, very important to maintain the supply, the value chain due diligence also. Means focus on human rights, focus on environment impacts, focus on governance across the entire gamut of supply chain, right? And when it comes to data reporting, right, again, some sort of compliance has to be followed here as well. So make it machine readable XBRL, which stands for Extensible Business Reporting Language, and using the European Sustainable Reporting Standard, which means you need to enable automated data processing and comparison. No, zero manual efforts. Everything should be automatic. Which means imagine a system, okay, wherein from sourcing to manufacturing, if everything is captured in the form of a data, and if you are able to get the real-time insights without manual intervention, then that is the dream of every company to get to mature to that particular level. Right? If they implement these standards, then they will be compliant from the CSRD perspective. Now, before we move forward, I wanted to give you a glimpse into the predecessor of CSRD, right? CSRD ka chota bhai, right? It is NFRD, Non-Financial Reporting Directive. Okay, this was already in place. Companies started implementing, but the consortium felt all the requirements with regard to ISO 26000, OECD, these are not enough. So that's why they revised it and they came up with a new version, which is extending the requirements which are already covered on NFRD. So which means it is an enhanced version of NFRD. So that this is the difference between CSRD versus NFRD. Now, I mentioned about the double materiality. Means you are combining both impact as well as the financial materiality. So impact means, okay, you are producing a product, that's good. But are you following ethical practices? How much greenhouse gas emissions are you emitting? Right? How much damage are you causing to Mother Earth? On the other side, climate and sustainable factor. Okay, because of some changing regulation. Okay, because there is a disruption. Okay, because of extreme weather, because of global warming or something. Maybe I have to replace my operations. Which means I have to lift and shift my operations elsewhere. That will impact your finance part. So both these aspects have to be assessed, and the reporting will happen across these two pillars, which is impact materiality and financial materiality. So should you be aware of all these things? In case if you are a small startup producing, small company producing some products by yourself, and if you are in India, operating to India, you don't have to worry about it until Indian regulation comes. But if you have more than 500 employees, okay, and which are already coming under the umbrella of NFRD, right? Then you have to adhere to CSRD requirements, right? And this is a phased approach. As I said, initially they wanted to start in 2024. Now it's staggered by 3 years, right? So 2027 onwards, it will be mandated for all the companies within the European Union. And any company which has more than 250 employees, which has 50 million euros annual turnover or 25 million euros as assets, they must comply, right? And with regard to small and medium enterprises, right, they must comply with, they should also comply with a subset of the requirements which are simpler in nature. And 2028, the new date is 2031, where non-European Union companies with significant European Union operations, they should also start complying. Right, so these are the effective dates. And next topic is California climate legislation. You know, California state, right? California is a state or a city?
It's a state.
Okay, California state. So they have also come up with their own legislation, saying that because in the among the 50 US states, right, these are the pioneers in terms of coming up with climate action. Okay, so they are the leading state. So SB 253, what they say is Climate Corporate Data Accountability Act, which means it is mandatory for the organizations to report their scope 1, 2, 3 emissions. And as per SB 61, they are saying climate risk disclosure requirements are to be covered. And who all should report? Any company with over $1 billion annual revenue who are doing business in California, it is applicable to them. Now you might wonder, I have presence in Europe, I have presence in California. Which which rule should I follow? Honestly, okay, if you cover CSRD, CSRD is a superset compared to California and rest of SCC and rest of the legislations in place. So if at all I were to approach this as at a corporate level, I would look at a framework which has comprehensive reporting and requirement. I will comply to that, so that in future if some other country also implements it, it will be within the subset of the major implementation. However, we should not neglect. Okay, you might never know. There may be one or two requirements which are not already covered in CSRD but are imposed by California. That's why it is essential for us to get in touch with some consulting organizations and get at least the impact assessment done or leverage their services instead of reinventing the wheel, provided you have budget, or else you'll get delayed. As simple as it. Supply chain implications like upstream purchased goods. I told you about purchased goods, employee transportation, and downstream product use, end of life. Okay, what am I doing? Let's assume, okay, my TV screen got damaged. I'm giving it for exchange. Okay, boss. What are you doing after the exchange? What is that fellow doing? Is he simply depositing it in the landfill, or is he extracting the components so that which can be reused, or is she extracting all the raw materials and sending it to somebody? We need to be wary about all these things. So third party verification is required from 2030, which means some audit organization needs to be employed, similar to companies, right? If they are filing the financial statements and all, they need to get the audit done by certified chartered accountants or something who are qualified, right? Similarly, audit needs to be done by third party so that they give a certificate saying that yes, this company is following all the supply chain requirements, all the ESG requirements or CSRD requirements. Excellent. And annual public disclosure. Where do they disclose this? Probably in their annual reports, right? So if you are seeking some funding, okay, from the global investors and all, right? If your company is focusing on ESG initiatives and is compliant to CSRD and all, then you'll highly likelihood there is a chance that you will get funding easily compared to when you are not compliant, right? So with regard to California Act, the implementation timeline is given here like 2026. You have first scope 1 and 2 reports due, and 2027 scope 3 reports due, and 2030 onward third party assurance. And in case if they are not complying, the penalties are huge, $500,000 and more. So global ripple effect. California's economy size, right? Fifth largest globally, means these requirements effectively become global standards for multinational companies, which means it will create pressure on the supply chain partners in order to improve the ESG practices, which is good. One caveat for the end user is the prices of the products are going to up, but it is okay because companies will start implementing ESG practices, which will save Mother Earth. So these are all, and one other thing which we haven't covered so far is the SEC, Security and Exchange Commission. Again, they also said scope 1 and 2 emissions must be reported by all public companies, and scope 3 for large accelerated filers. And next important one is the UK Modern Slavery Act. This is another important thing, like, annual slavery, human trafficking statements, due diligence. So here, companies, okay, with over 36 million euros annual turnover, they come under this Modern Slavery Act, right? And Supplier Diligence Act. And Germany has its own supply chain act. It is called as LKSG. Unfortunately, I'll not be able to pronounce this. All German names are a little tough. But one thing I want to highlight with regard to human rights and all. If you want to work overseas, try to get into a German company and go to Germany, because their workers council is so strong and they guarantee your employment. People cannot sack, which is companies cannot sack an employee just like that. Okay, it happens in other countries like India, US, or anywhere else. In Germany, workers council is not going to accept, right? So regulatory, that means the regulations worldwide are converging on similar themes, like think about due diligence, supply chain transparency, climate disclosure, which means these are all the common themes around which all the regulations are culminating, right? So which means that way we will have opportunities for standardizing the approach, technology, and so on. Okay. So in the interest of time, I'll stop here, and maybe for next 2 minutes, if you guys have any questions, I'll be
Yeah.
happy to.
It's a very, very insightful and very elaborative lecture, Naveen. So thank you very much. So one important observation is, yeah. So we talk more. See, the ESG part, the environmental, social, and governance. Governance was there on focus from the beginning. Okay.
Yes.
So even pre-independence and everything, the governance, everybody is trying to optimize governance to make it more profitable organization kind of thing. So by focusing more on governance, so it led to some bad practices, which is creating a problem for environment and also for social. Okay,
Yeah.
so this is becoming so big that eventually even the companies itself tend to fail. Okay, because of this. So now everybody realize this problem. So if we don't focus more on ESG, it is not that these companies are going to benefit. Even the good performing companies also may fail. So that is the reason ESG is one of the main parameter for every investor look into it. So uh, they, 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 they will definitely pay more attention to the ESG compliant companies. So what I see is even if you want to do service or even if you want to export your products to Europe, US, and they may ask you to show your ESG compliance. So this is something which is very, very important at this point of time. Okay, so even if an Indian government, not it will take some time, but it will come up eventually. But even if you are exporting, you have to be compliant with that. So one observation, Naveen, maybe you can answer it. So environment, the governance part is for sure. There are so many legislations and conditions. Environment part, you just rightly said, main focus of the carbon emissions kind of thing. What about social? Okay, social part still needs to be really known, assessed very well, and then I think the impact of social part is not really understood by all. Maybe not.
Yeah.
Maybe not everybody understood this. So, what is your take on that?
See, my take is it is kind of dynamic and fluidic in nature when it comes to social. Because initially, like if you look at the evolution of workforce in India, right? People said, okay, it is okay if we have 33% workforce and still corporates try to, I mean, 33% of women in the workforce. After that, what happened? Okay, you have to employ LGBTQ community, people belonging to lesbian, gay, and bisexual, and all. And in some cases, people prefer to open up saying that they are belonging to third gender or they are bisexual, and sometimes they don't. Means in reality, right? Though this organization, which has 10,000 employees, they have hypothetically, say, let's assume 20 people who fall under LGBTQ, but they did not open up. But there is a requirement from the government saying that okay, 0.2% of your workforce should be LGBTQ. Since these guys did not open up, though they are complied, okay, but from the reporting perspective, I'm not showing that I have this 0.2% of them coming up. Right. Likewise, it is very tricky and little difficult because it is got to do with human emotions. And similarly, when it comes to neurodiversity, right? Most people, right, have this ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity syndrome, and all. People cannot concentrate on that. But if I tell them, okay, you are ADHD, right? Suddenly their behavior will change. Hey, why are you pointing me like that? But corporate, I mean, the regulatory says that, okay, you should have at least 0.3% of people who belong to neurodiversity. But can I admit saying that I'm a neurodiverse patient? I feel obligated. I feel um, kind of very bad to openly admit that I belong to this particular thing because of social stigma attached to it. So here again, we may have to go with transparency, wherein if the employer can guarantee saying that your identity will not be disclosed and all, wherein you can openly tell about all the vulnerabilities that you have both physically and mentally, then I'll be able to track the metrics, right? So we have to rely on some best practices which other companies are doing, but this is a very dynamic thing. That's why I don't see many companies maturing in that particular aspect. That would be my take.
So I think there is a tremendous opportunity to define what is the measure for social part of it. I think that is
Exactly.
that will come up in the next decade. So once this environmental part and the governance defines, then you
Yeah.
come up with the social. I think social part is so subtle that the effects sometimes, because of government reasons or whatever, you don't really measure it.
Yeah.
So that has to be taken. And in the social part of ESG, it's not only about the organizations. As you rightly said during your presentation, it's about people. People take
Yeah.
responsibility. Now you stop plastic, usage of plastic, and still you go to supermarket and you don't take your bags. Okay, and you say, as you said, people feel shame in taking boxes or something for purchasing something. This is, I think, the people have to also have to change. So I think that is the
Exactly.
ultimate thing we can happen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I think you nicely mentioned the regulation, the California, other regulation things summarized. I think that your presentation has everything related to the ESG. It's very insightful session, Naveen. So thank you very much
Sure.
for a wonderful lecture. And I think it was so elaborative and very self-explanatory that I think the team should have understood very well. So very nice. So any conclusion, takeaways, Naveen, from your side?
See, from my side, one thing as a human being, right? Let us not cause as much damage as we have already caused or our previous generation has come. Let us not wait for the government to come up with a regulation, just like government has done, saying that you have to wear helmet. If not, you get the penalized 1,000 rupees or something, right? Let us be sensible. That would be my take. Instead of somebody else directing us and we following their directions, if we are sensible and if we can drive the change internally from our side, then we will be better citizens, better employees, better employers as well. Okay, that
Yeah,
would be my key message.
fantastic. So thank you, Naveen. Thank you very much, and have a great time. So
Yeah, yeah,
fantastic
thank you. And
event.
I unfortunately I
Thank you.
have to leave. I have a conflict, and
Yeah, yeah,
thank
yeah.
you
Thank you.
everyone
So
for
take
your
care and have a
patient listening. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
So, ladies and gentlemen, big round of applause to Naveen. So, thank you, Naveen. Very insightful, very detailed, and very thought-provoking lecture. And with all the kind of understanding of ESG, I can say this is one of the best presentations I have seen. Thank you very much, Naveen. Thank you very much.
Sure, sure. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Bye bye.
So, ladies and gentlemen, this is the time now we almost completed 2 days of session. So, we would like to, we have one session missed, the last session because of some unforeseen items. But yeah, so just I would like to conclude today's session. So, yesterday we had around 10 sessions. Uh, Starting from let me just quickly take it up. So we had day day one. We talk about supply chain planning, intelligence, and also the technology yesterday. So we had around 10 speakers giving on a different topics yesterday. Right, started from Suresh Kavali. He has explained the AI in operations and supply chain management, then continued by Yub on IBP and SNOP. Then Dr. Captain Sanjeev Kumar has given very nice insights on the governance part of supply chain. The Rajiv Ganju has talked about manufacturing excellence and Industry 4.0. So Ms. Hanuma Pogaru, she very decently explained about the overall technology, especially AI in forecasting and other supply chain systems. Okay. So we had a wonderful session from Samir Favor, who gave the wisdom part of the whole ecosystem. So how the wisdom of human wisdom can help you to do better on top of it, whatever technology. Okay. Then we have Alexander Borg came up and talk about orchestrating end-to-end supply chain optimization. Very nicely, he can include the topic. Alex Goma, he talk about practical insights about sales and operations planning and IBP and how leadership should manage this. And then I was fortunate to give a lecture on supply chain processes through AI optimization methods and IoT. Okay. So then Chris White came and he talked about fantastic topic on collaborative planning across multi-enterprise supply chain networks. Then finally, today we had around 9 sessions today. So one is greater than others. So we started with Pankaj Srivastav. So he has talked about warehousing, future of the warehousing 2030. So automation, robotics, and beyond. It's a very, very important session where how does that warehousing will look like in next 5-10 years. Then followed by Rajesh Selvam, he took about one of the key process in the supply chain, last mile deliveries. So and how this is affecting the whole supply chain management. And we are lucky to have a Faisal Ziauddin. He talked very nicely about some very key insights about smart manufacturing, lean, and agile. Very insightful lecture on some very important concepts in. So then Ms. Sanita talked about the supply chain execution processes, the VUCA environment. She gave a nice demo of FUSI, warehouse management and manufacturing execution. And then Muhammad Imran Ghani, he gave a very nice concept on ESG. Unfortunately, he could not stay there for full session, but whatever sessions he has given, a very insightful topic. And Biju Nankutan talk about the orchestrating end-to-end supply chain optimization through KPI and strategy. He said very nice, very insightful examples, and then key topics. Very well organized lecture. Then we had one lecture from Akram on OT security, the operational technology security, which is very important. Cyber security in operations technology, one of the most important part at this point of time, because of we are talking about AI, IoT, and other things. So he jumped in and then fantastic lectures. Then followed by I gave one lecture on the strategy management. So it was just I try to help the overall strategy formulation process, right from strategy analysis, formulation, alignment, and then execution. Then we had Naveen Savala. So we talk about very elaborated lecture on ESG, its standards, its practices, and also the way forward, how it look like. So I think we had a wonderful sessions for 2 days. I take this as an opportunity, and I take a big pride in moderating the event. Really learned a lot during the session today and yesterday. Thank you all the participants from all the channels, Zoom, YouTube, LinkedIn, and others. And I thank all the participants of yesterday and today. So, and I thank organizers, Praveen and Jyoti, so for relentless work for 2 days and then all these days before to make this program successful. So thank you very much, and look forward for future events. So we always from Data Labs India team, through C and through strategy. So we take pride in connecting best of the best consultants, industry leaders to the organizations, and then try to help them to share the knowledge for the betterment of the governance, business, and everything. So, and we are very happy to do that, and we keep doing it. Okay. So as we go on, maybe in the next we try to improve. There are some ditches of organization because we are not professional event managers. We are engineers. So But we tried our best. If there is any mistake, any inconvenience caused to participants, speakers, please apologize for us. So from bottom of my heart, on behalf of participants and everybody, thank you very much. Have a good time. Thank you very much.